Hello, and welcome back to the DIY Hosting for a WordPress Website video course. In this video, we're going to explore SSH aliases, and we're going to set one up so that we can more quickly and easily connect to our Raspberry Pi over an SSH connection. So what is an SSH alias? Well, an SSH alias is a shorthand for an SSH connection. It wraps up the IP address, the username, and the key file location and the file name in a series of lines in a configuration file. And OpenSSH will know where to look and will provide us with a shorthand whereby we can simply type in SSH space and then the shorthand string. For example, if I'd set up the alias to be just called Pi, I could type in just SSH Pi and I would be logged into that server. This is in part thanks to setting up the public-private key authentication of the previous video, which is why I'm now extending this to include SSH aliases. So as mentioned, SSH aliases provide a quicker and easier way to sign in to an SSH-enabled server, and it means we don't have to remember the path or the file name of your key file or indeed your IP address in order to connect to the server you want to. It's also worth mentioning that doing this now is a good idea. As with any productivity task, it's important to do it as early on in your project as possible. And as we haven't really got into the meat of this course, where we're going to host a website and an email server on a Raspberry Pi, it's a good idea to get our connection process as streamlined as possible. So let's go over to the desktop and let's set up an SSH alias. So here I am on my desktop. I've opened up my PowerShell because, as mentioned in the previous video, I'm using Microsoft Windows as my client local PC. And what we need to do is we need to edit a file in the .ssh folder called config. So as I'm using Windows, I'll be using Notepad for this. So I'll type Notepad. And then as I'm already in my user's home directory, I can reference it using // and then I'll go into the .ssh folder where the config file will exist and I will edit it. You might not actually have a config file on your computer. If you haven't, that's fine, create a blank file. It doesn't matter. I happen to have one, which is why we're opening it like this results in a file full, complete with 3 entries already. So you can see by looking at my existing entries how this pattern works. You have a host name, which is basically your alias. It's what it will look like or what you will type when you use SSH to connect to a particular server. The host name is, in our case, the IP address of our server. The user, in our case, will be Pi, and the identity file is the key file. And as we set up public-private key authentication in the previous video, we can use this. So let's do it for the Pi. So host, I'm going to use the alias Pi because it's really short, but you can have anything there you like. The host name is going to be my IP address. 3. The user, of course, is Pi, and the identity file is going to be my home directory, SSH hidden folder, and then Raspberry Pi key. And that's all we need. So if I save this file, Control S, and I close it down, OpenSSH should now know that if I intend to SSH using the alias Pi, it will, in the background, substitute in our IP address, our username, and our private key, and we'll set up the connection as normal. So let's see what happens. And there we go, we've used an alias. So you can see the difference between this command, in which we simply type SSH Pi, and the original command, which looks something like this. The difference between these two is clearly evident, and being able to connect using SSH Pi instead of SSH Pi at IP -I, you get the idea. So hopefully now you've got a more streamlined way of connecting to your Pi, which will help you as you go through the course. I hope you've enjoyed and found this lesson useful. If you have, please do like and subscribe. It makes it a lot easier for me to continue recording videos. Thank you very much, and see you next time.